I am here with the incredible Rick Hansen, Canadian Paralympian, activist, philanthropist for people with disabilities. Rick, it's such a pleasure to talk to you today. How are you?
Thanks, Mike. Great. It's an honor to be here and really fantastic to be back to Winnipeg.
Absolutely. And we're here at Vincent Massey Collegiate today. The school applied for your foundation's Barrier Buster program, and you've granted it to them $30,000. Tell us about what the Barrier Buster program entails.
Yeah, well, we're coming up to Canada's 150th anniversary or birthday in 2017, and what a great country. We should be proud of our country, but it's not just about a party, it's about helping to build the country as well and leave birthday presents that are meaningful. And we have this Barrier Buster Grant program, thanks to the Government of Canada's support of our foundation, to be a signature event of celebrating the 150th birthday of Canada. And we're asking schools and youth in the entire country to get in motion, to be barrier busters, to find barriers to accessibility and inclusion, and to then come up with solutions and then apply to our foundation at rickhansen.com for grants up to $30,000 to help bust those barriers down. And what a great way to leave a birthday present and build the Canada we want.
It was such a pleasure listening to you speak to all the students today at Vincent Massey Collegiate. You told a story, I believe it was your principal from back in school, saying you don't necessarily need the use of your legs to be an athlete. Just to comment on that.
You know, education is important, and you never know if you stay open where you find inspiration from your teachers and your role models. And my coach and teacher was sitting down and chatting to me when I was coming back to school after my injury, wondering what was possible. And he knew sport was important to me, and he knew I wanted to be involved in sport, and I thought it had been taken away from me because of my injury. And he introduced me to Paralympic sport. And I wasn't being too positive at first about it, you know, and he could see I had some barriers, and he tried to shake me up in my thinking. And he actually told me, he said, you know, why don't you look up the definition of athlete? And I went, what for? And he goes, just read it. And I read it, and I said, yeah. And he goes, well, any reference to whether you have to use your legs in order to be one? And I went, okay, yeah, I could see what was going on there. And that was a huge, huge transformation for me, and opened up my mind to start clearing out my own internal barriers so I could get out there and live the life I wanted. I was still Rick, the athlete, and sport was waiting for me.
Your foundation obviously does so much work for people with disabilities. You break down barriers, and you do so much more than that too, because I'd like you to comment on how twofold it is. Because not only are you removing these physical barriers and you're creating accessible spaces for people, but it's also that mentality that people have that you changed over the years, changing people's attitudes. It's a much more inclusive society because of people like you. So talk about how twofold it is. It's not so much what we see in front of us all the time, but how we think.
Yeah, there's no question that attitudes and awareness are probably the most powerful things that we can do. Canada's an inclusive society, and diversity is our strength. And the way we come together, we honor and we respect people in spite of the fact they have differences, and we can actually use our differences as our strength, because we can all add something special to the equation. And we don't build walls in Canada, we build bridges.
That's right. And so I had to learn that life was still possible. I had to learn that there are other people like me who had been there before, and they were showing ability, and they weren't focusing on what they couldn't do. They were focusing on what they could. And
we all have disabilities of one form or another at one point in our life or another, and they can be visible or they can be invisible. I think the most important thing is to normalize disability, to get the stigmas out of the way. It's just the fact of life. As Michael J. Fox would say, we all have our bag of hammers. But what really counts is that we are open about it, so that we can speak about it in the context of a barrier. And if there's a barrier out there, let's speak about the issue so we can just get on with removing those barriers and get on with life. And anything's possible, and we all have ability, and let's focus on ability. And we really have to think about the possibilities of our life, and every person counts, and we're all whole as human beings. And that's my message, and I want to keep bringing that forward, not just to Canada, but to the rest of the world. And that's why I did my original tour 30 years ago.
There you go. Truly inspiring. We can't thank you enough for your time, Rick, today. And I think it's fitting that we have the man in motion on a show we like to call Go, here on Shaw TV.
Right on. Thanks, Mike. Awesome.